To speak with us, I would like to call a special person onto the stage. We are so much honored to have here Mr. Dushyanth Sridhar, a renowned Vedic scholar, to our panel. With his deep knowledge of Vedas, Upanishads and other ancient Indian scriptures, Mr. Dushyanth Sridhar has made significant contributions to the revival and understanding of India's spiritual heritage. A popular speaker and teacher, he has delivered lectures across the globe, making complex philosophical ideas accessible to modern audiences. His profound insights into Indian culture, philosophy, and spirituality have enriched the lives of many, inspiring a deeper appreciation for the wisdom of ancient texts. So, with a big round of applause, let's invite Mr. Dushyanth Sridhar onto the stage, please, to speak with us. You're already here.
भूखंडे केरलाख्ये सरित निहनिलाम् उत्तरे नैवनावा क्षेत्रागव्यूतिमात्ने पुनरुपरिणव ग्रामनाम्नि स्वधाम्नि धर्मिष्ठात् भट्टतन्त्रात् अखिलमतपटोर्मातृदत्तद्विजेन्द्रात् जातो नारायणाख्यो निरवहदतुलां देवनारायणाज्ञाम्. A very good afternoon to all those who are present in this summit. Indeed, a moment of delight and pleasure to have been a part of this summit conducted across various cities in Dakshina Bharatam, like the Bhagyanagara of Hyderabad, Bendegada Uru, which is Bengaluru, Coimbatore, and the city known for its Sangam literature, which is Madurai. A good, fair, a very reciprocal and a knowledge-sharing association that I've had with my dear friend Shankar, and this beautiful company that he manages with his set of knowledge-bearing employees is indeed a moment of delight for me. There is a Champu Kavyam in Sanskritam. Champu in Sanskritam means where there is an admixture of prose and poetry. So there is a Champu Kavyam called Bharata Champu, written by a poet called Anantakavi, who says that the residents on Mother Earth, they lost access to the incessant flow of ambrosia, which is nectar. So they all went and complained to Mother Earth. And she, being the mother, a doting mother, filled with compassion, she said, I will procure if the stock is over here. So Mother Earth extended her hands upwards and got the ambrosia from the celestials. And those extended hands were the coconut trees, and the poet says you can find them a lot in Kerala, writing it 750 years back. So to the state of Parashurama, to the state that gives a beautiful loom called the Kasavu, to the state that doesn't steam its rice first, whereas grates its coconuts in the morning to fill its dishes with every possible way with coconut and jackfruit, to the furniture that embroiders itself with neem wood, mango and jackfruit, to a state which 250 years before the advent of the integral series in mathematics of Europe had a secret school of mathematics called Sangama Gramam in a place called Tirunava, which is very close to Kuttipuram, with such great but lesser known mathematicians like Achyuta Pisharoti and Narayana Bhattadri. I pay my obeisances to. And the topic that I have been ordained to speak for the day is Bharata as a brand. I'm sure I'll have friends from very different states of Bharata Desham. It has often been a point of discussion, at times a point of memes and ridicules, that people south of the Vindhyas say Bharata and not Bharat. Why? Why that extra A? Because in Sanskritam, you should never ever complete the last letter by cutting half of its pronunciation. It's not Arjun, it's Arjuna. That akaram has to be there. It is not the other way of making it Arjuna, that akarantam is not needed, but it's Arjuna and Bharata. Why do then people say Bharat? They should be sitting for my lecture. So it is Bharata and not Bharat. Technically correct if you want to be. So why Bharata? And what is significant about the word Bharata? You know, the beauty is etymologically when you derive words, you will learn the language much better. Like how the word entre and prenore becomes entrepreneur. So it's entre and prenore. And it's not restaurant, it's restaurant. So every language has its way of saying things. For example, I'm sure there is Mohit Joshi with us. So in Marathi, it's not Joshi, it's Zoshi. So when you sing Abhangs in Marathi, you will know Madhe Manoratha Purna Kari Deva. So Dha is very important. For example, people who are not speaking Tamil will never get Tamil. It's Kozhikode. ஆழி மழை கண்ணா ஒன்று நீ கைகரவேல் ஆழியுள் புக்கு முகர்ந்து கொடாய் தேரி ஊழி முதல்வன் உருவம் போல் மெய்கருத்து பாழி அம்தோளுடைய பற்பனாவன் கையில் ஆழி போல் மின்னி வலம்புரி போல் நின்றதிருந்து. But the beauty is those of them who protest for the sake of Tamil language never get to say Ra. How does Bharata feature? And what is this etymological derivation? Etymological derivation is when you get to the root word. For example, I'll just give you an example to get to Bharata. Dhava. Dhava. Telugu varu unnara akkada? So you will know there's an exact pronunciation to every letter. Dhava means husband. In Sanskritam, Dhava means husband. Ma means Mahalakshmi. Mahalakshmi's husband is called Madhava. So when you get the word Madhava, it is derived as the husband to Mahalakshmi. Mas Dhava. So suppose the woman and her husband, she sees her husband dead. So she's without the husband. So she's Vidhava. So it becomes Dhava. Suppose the man loses his wife. It is Vidhura. So he's a widower. So this widower, widow, dhava comes from the root word. So it's very, very important to understand the root word. So this is called the language. That's where we deal in linguistics. Let's take Bharata for example. Bharata means the land that ensures that there is a nourishment and wisdom. That land which ensures that there is incessant supply to nourishing wisdom. That's how you call it Bharata. But how is this word connected to certain characters is a very important, probably a pertinent question that should come in the minds of us. One, we have had technically a king that we deal in Bhagavata Puranam called as Rishabhanatha. Rishabham in Sanskritam means a bull. Rishabhanatha, he had, immediately, when I say that Rishabha means bull and there was a person called Rishabhanatha, an iconography person will put two horns above him, just like the Onida advertisement. But when we decipher poetry, it is very important that we get to the nuances of understanding similes and metaphor. If I say that somebody or something or somebody is as fair as the milk, it means the person is fair. That's all. Simile should stop there. It doesn't mean you can end up using the person when you make your set of cappuccino the next morning. So an upama should stop then and there. So Rishabhanatha means he had the gait of that of a majestic bull. So Rishabhanatha had many sons. The oldest of them was called as Bharata. And he had many other sons. One of the prime duties of kings of those days was incessant production too. So he had very many sons, the oldest being Bharata. After relinquishing his kingdom to his oldest son, he said, I retire to the forest. And right from Ayodhya, he is said to have travelled through Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, parts of Madhya Pradesh, some parts of the Aravalis in Rajasthan, then Gujarat, through the coast of Maharashtra. He reached the southern part of Karnataka to a mountain called Kutakachalam. Kutakachala in Sanskrita today means Kodagu or Kurg. See, he is said to have relinquished his mortal body there, and that place became very famous for the advent of Jainism. So Rishabhanatha is the first Tirthankara in Jainism, and the oldest of his sons was called Bharata. Bharata, after having been made the king, the Uttaradhikari, he administers his kingdom well. In those days, most people who ruled or administered were educated and were also scam free. So he administered his kingdom really well. And then he thought, it's high time for me to become a recluse, an ascetic. And he walks up towards the Himalayas and reaches a current day place called as Muktinath or Shalagram, very close to Pokhara in Nepal, where you get those fossiled stones bored by insects called Vajrakitam. So he goes to that place. The 7th century Tamil poet called Thirumangai says, Kalayum, Kariyum, Parimavum, Tiriyum, Kanam, Kadandu Poi, Shilayum, Kanayum, Tunayaga, Shendran, Vendri, Sherikkalathu, Malaigund, Alamid, Anegatti, Malainir Kundu Valarakat, Taliban, Talipattar, Tumuhandan, Shalakirama, Madainenje. So to that place he goes. He stations his ashrama by the banks of river Ghandaki. Very, very engrossed in his yoga, extremely meticulous in his meditation. One day he sees a pregnant doe jumping from one boulder to the other in the fear of a tiger which was chasing her. The belly of the doe hits the boulder and the little one comes from the amniotic sac and falls to a leaf that is floating by the river. So looking at the little one, just born one which may die, this Bharata, who was engaged in meditation, who saw this, took a plunge into the waters of Ghandaki, protected that little dear one, and nourished and nurtured that as his very own child. He used to give aid to organic grass-fed milk. And then he nourished that little one. All his 24x7 meditation got reduced exponentially down, 22, 20, 16, 14. The rate at which the concentration level goes down as the number of sessions go in a summit like this. So it got reduced, and at one point in time his mind was so much so into the doe that he forgot meditation, and his mind was in the doe. That doe and the little one. And the little one that grew morphologically, anatomically, and then went into the forest. That time, Purana says, when he was thinking of the deer and he died, he became the deer. Because there's a nyayam called Tatkratu Nyayam. Whatever your mind is completely engrossed in, while it is in the state of exiting the gross body, it becomes that. So it became the deer. But the beauty was he remembered what he was. So he started going as a deer hither and thither. Then the Atma left the deer and it came to a learned person's body. But the person was so much aloof from the rest of the world that the rest of the world thought him to be an insentient object and called him by the name Jada. Since he was called Bharata 2 births before, he was called Jada Bharata. This Jada Bharata has an intellectual conversation with the king called Rahuguna Maharaja of Sindhu Sauvira Pradesham. Sindh region is around Karachi. Sauviram is just above that, close to Lahore. And this Sindhu Sauvira Pradesham was very famous for nurturing horses. So hence horses were called Saindhavam. During Mahabharata Yuddham, it is said that horses were imported from that region. So he becomes Jada Bharata. So Jada Bharata is the name, first reason why this Desham is called Bharatam, says Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Purana says this country is called Bharatam because of this man called Bharata, who was a beacon of hope and knowledge and enlightenment. So the country has always been a place of debate and discussion. This country or this land can never be fed with one thought. That is why if you see Sanatana Dharma itself, there is one philosophy called Advaita of Shankara of this state, which says that everything is one. Ekameva Dvidiyam. He says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Daivaikanaparaha iti Vedanta Dindimaha. There is only one Tattvam. Go to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu. Ramanujacharya of Visishtadvaita says, no, that one is true, but that has a body of non-qualified dualism, which is called Vishishtadvaita. You go to the state of Karnataka, Madhvacharya says, no, there are two tattvas, there is Paramatma and Jivatma. So within three states, you have three philosophies. And if you go to as far as Kamakhya in Pragjyotishapuram of Assam, there is Vamachara cult of Shaktism in Kamakhya temple. You come all the way to Sringeri in Karnataka, you have the Mantrika, the very Vaidika tradition of Shaktism. So this land can never be fed with one thought. That's the uniqueness about this land. It's one tree. Agreed, it's one tree, but very many branches. So it's a highly evolved university with many departments, is what you can put it in mundane sense. So Jada Bharata is one of the reasons. Second, there was a king of the Kuru Vamsham called as Dushyanth Maharaja. At least for namesake, I share his name. But the only thing that I should keep praying is that I shouldn't forget like how he forgot. He was known for his state of being oblivious or going into the state of oblivion, which I cannot afford in a summit like this. So, this Dushyanta Maharaja goes on a sojourn to the forest for hunting. And then, while he is about to hunt a deer, Bho Bho Ho Raja, come two ascetics, hermit men, and they say, don't kill this particular deer. The king wondered why. Probably he read an article about a person who went on a shooting spree in Rajasthan and was forced to become human later. So, he said, why shouldn't I be hunting this? Because you're given license to kill. In the US, there are some states of the East Coast where during a certain period you're given the license to hunt. And in New Zealand, in the northern and the southern island, you get the license to hunt and then procure venison. Why shouldn't I? So that's when they say this is actually an ashrama attached animal. We have a GI tag with it. So this belongs to the ashramam of a rishi called Kanva. So do not shoot the animal. It's in the endangered species. Don't do that. The king values the thought of these two hermits. And as he moves towards the lake, he sees a woman of spotless beauty, as blemishless as one could be. Since she was abandoned by her own parents called Vishwamitra and Menaka, and she was protected from Mother Nature with the extended wings and feathers of Shakuntaha. Shakunta is a kind of birds. She protected by Shakunta, she was called Shakuntala. So he speaks Shakuntala, she is a beacon of beauty, a personification of how Samudrika Lakshana Shastram should say a woman should be. And she too spots this man of whey protein fed, well-built body who's been working out and doing cardio in regular intervals. So she falls in love with him. Call it love or infatuation at the first sight. They fall in love. And it was one of the 8 approved marriages in Sanatana Dharma, because in one of the 8 approved, Ashtavidhanam Vivahaha, there are 8 kinds of marriages. One Vivaham is called Gandharvam, where you don't have to call anyone, arrange a banquet and a buffet. You don't even have to go to a registrar office. If the girl and the boy like, they can exchange a ring. And both don't have to buy, just one can buy. The most cost effective of all. So this man puts in a ring to her and gives her hope that he will summon her, call her to the palace at the right time with due respects. And the beauty is, this girl is lost in thoughts about Dushyanta Maharaja. She eventually turns pregnant. As she is lost in his thoughts and the ashrama is one day evacuated, nobody else is there, comes a person who was known only for his bad temperament, called Durvasa Maharshi. His rise to fame was cursing anybody and everybody he saw. So he sees this woman, he sees that she is not offering him Atitheya Satkaram, Atithi Satkaram. So he gets perturbed. He keeps reminding her, she is completely lost in Dushyanta's thoughts. So this man gives a complicated shapam. He says, you are lost in somebody else's thoughts, so that man whom you are thinking will forget you. Look at the complication. Katham pramattaha prathamam kritamiva. 1800 years back, Kalidasa, the great poet, in Shakuntalam says, what curse he gave? He says that man will forget you. He's a poet. He has to give a simile, upama. So he says, that king whom you are lost in thoughts will forget you like how? Katham pramattaha prathamam kritamiva. Like on the previous day night when a drunkard says, I will do this and I will do that and will forget the next morning, so will he forget. See, look at the simile and the maturity. 850 years before even the red brick Cambridge was born, here is a poet somewhere in Ujjain giving a simile that can be reckoned and relatable even today. Katham pramattaha prathamam kritamiva. So then she doesn't know about the Shapam. As she goes to a second trimester, the gynecologist advises you have to come with your husband. Then she goes to all the way to the king's palace. The king shows absolutely no sign of remembering her. Then she goes to see her ring. A ring is called Anguliyam, but it's called as Abhijnanam. Abhijnanam is something that gives you a reminder of someone. So she goes searching for our Abhijnanam, her ring is missing. So it's called Abhijnana Shakuntalam. So she doesn't spot, then she goes to the forest. She as a single mother delivers her child. This boy is called Sarvadamana. And later the king remembers through spotting that ring that he had forgotten Shakuntala, goes in search of her, spots the boy, spots the mother, brings the boy home. This boy becomes an excellent administrator. He was so much good as an administrator that he becomes a specimen of how administration should be. So Mahabharatam says this country is called Bharatam because of him. In Ramayanam we come across Rama, who has been asked to rule the kingdom. The father comes and says, you have to rule from tomorrow. He doesn't show much excitement. He says, okay, Papa, and he goes. That very night comes the maid servant and the caretaker, the Montessori caretaker of Kaikeyi while she was young, called Manthara. She brainwashes Kaikeyi in exactly 1 hour 25 minutes. This woman ends up retrieving her 2 boons that she had sought many years back from her husband, who goes into a mild cardiac arrest. So then Rama is summoned, and he's been asked to go to the forest. Being the obedient son during the idealistic times, he says, okay, when my father says go, I have to go. He goes, tells his wife, Sita, are you coming with me? Sita says yes, but then he says, forest is full of misery, stay back. She says, the better option is to come with you rather than staying with so many mothers-in-law here. So when all of them are suffering from good health and nothing untoward is going to happen, it's better choice, a prudent choice to be with you. And as the couple leave their apartment, Lakshmana comes and says, Aham sarvam sabhratus charanau gadham nipidhya raghunandanaha sitamuvachitishayam raghavam cha mahabratam aham sarvam karishyami jagrataha swapataschate. Whether the both of you are awake or asleep, I shall do all kinds of services. Sita says, this is the best offer one can get, bring him along. All 3 of them go to the forest. That is when Bharata, for whom his mother has fought to get the kingdom, understands the situation. He says, I will not rule or stay in Ayodhya even for a single day. That would be detrimental to my very morality and character. So he goes to Chitrakuta, which is by the banks of river Malyavati or Mandakini, the upper part of Madhya Pradesh, requesting his brother to come. That is when Rama wonders, see, if it had been some other individual, that person would have happily ruled Ayodhya, would have produced children, would have ensured that the next 2 generations also end up ruling. And that son might have arranged even a car race. So, that being the situation, how on earth are you a person who is a personification of bhakti? Bharataya param namostu tasmai prathamodaharanaya bhakti bhajam yadupagyam asheshatah pritivyam pratito raghava paduka prabhavaha. What an example of true devotion and sincerity you are, Bharata. So because of Rama's younger brother Bharata, this is called Bharatam. Third, last of all. See, we have been a land of great skills, 64 arts. Narayana Bhattatri of Kerala says, Gatva Sandipani Matha Chatushashti Ratri Mahobihi Sarvajnastvam Sahamusalina Sarvavidya Grihitva Putram Nashtam Yamanilayanat Akhridam Dakshinartam Datva Tasmai Nijapuramagat Nadayan Panchajanyam in Narayaniyam. He says Chatushashti, 64 arts people knew in those days. You knew how to use mud and make dolls. You knew how to extract minerals and make a dancing doll. The earliest that you find is of the Indus Valley civilization. You knew how to speak. You know how to see. One of the 64 arts is dance. You know, when Rama was asked whether to become the next heir apparent, people asked, what qualification does he have? You know what Vasishta says? Vaiharikaha, he is very good at dance. You may wonder, for an administrator, why should he be good at dance? Because dance teaches you discipline. When you learn a classical dance form, you do, for example, let's take the Natya Shastram of Tamil Nadu called Bharatanatyam. You do Aramandi. You take Kadai Kalikkum, Kali is Kathakali. You present a story in a dance form, it is called Kathakali, because Katha is given in the form of a Kali. Kadai Kali. So Kadai Kalikkum Kaliyana Kathakali. So you have got a Kathakali. Then you have got a Kaikottu Kali. Then there is a dance in Guruvayur called Krishnattangali. Manameno Medoyam, 16th century poet, mentions that. Mohiniyattam, how you use your eyes. See, when you speak, when let's say 100, 200, 500 people are looking at you, you should ensure that your eyes are used well. Abhinayam is a part of dance. How you use your mudras, how you use your hand. That's a part. When you learn dance, you also learn speaking. When you learn music, you learn how to articulate. It will not be a monologue in just one pace. As you go up and you come down, you're able to get that. Sari ma pa ni da da pa ma ga ri sa ga. You're able to articulate with your voice. So every soft skill in Bharatam comes from art. And that art gives you emotion. That emotion is called bhavam. You do that with love, it is ragam. And you do that in a pace, it becomes talam. Bhava, raga, tala is bharata, bharatam. So that's the fourth reason. So, Jada Bharata was a beacon of Jnana Yoga, which tells you, nourish your knowledge and wisdom. Dushyantha's son Bharata, Dushyanti, Shakuntala's son. Shakuntala and Dushyantha's son is Bharata, called Dushyanti, say Shatapatha Brahmana. He was very good in administration, which means how do you manage and run. Today I heard many entrepreneurs speak about their companies. How do you manage your resources? You're not dealing with machines, you're dealing with humans. Each human is different. The sensitivity could be different. How do you manage every human? How do you speak and get your things done? Yet not being abusive, verbally, physically, not harassing, not getting a whistleblower's call. How do you manage? How do you even answer a mail? See, answering a mail is as simple as a skill. A person writes a question to you, you have to give a specific answer. You know, some people, I'll give 15 questions, answer will be okay. Okay to what? To my mail or to all the points? And when you have to answer a person, will you be able to come? Yes, I will tell you by tomorrow day end. I'll come back to you shortly. When will that shortly come? See, shortly is a very, because for a lifespan of 120 years in a turtle, 110th year, because a dog will die by the 11th year, you wouldn't know what is shortly. So this is a very customer care answer. A customer care is known to always say that I'll come back to you shortly, which they will never get back because that person will change. So, as simple as answering a mail, specificity. If you ask how many verses of Bhagavad Gita are there, I think, 700 verses, 18 chapters. Numbers were a game of Bharatiyas. That is why we have Katapaya Adi Sankhya. That is how integral series came from Madhava series of Kerala. There is a department in IIT Povai headed by Ramasubramaniam that researches only on the mathematic manuscripts found in Kerala. So, administration. Rama's younger brother Bharata was a beacon of devotion, and Bharatanatyam, Bharata, is about practicing an art. So that word Bharata has administration, it has devotion, it has art, it has knowledge. That's brand Bharata for us. And from Bharata, that's, and our country that carries that Bharata. I will never say discard India. No, India also has a very traditional root from Intu to the days of Chinese manuscripts. That is for a separate lecture. I'll tell you how from every inscription we got the name Intu, which became Hindu. That is also a very decisive name that we use. But Bharata has a very deeper connotation. And when we imbibe that as a media channel or as an entrepreneur, as a teacher, as a student into our life, I'm sure when the knowledge is being disseminated and dispensed, it will bear a lot more value and wisdom. With that, I would like to thank you all for staying so much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much for such an interesting and informative speech. Can we have one more big round of applause for him? Yes. And I would like to invite Mr. Arjun Bhatia from Bharat Matrimony to please come onto the stage and present him a memento as a token of appreciation. Yeah. Thank you, Sri Dushyanth Sridhar, and thank you, Mr. Arjun Bhatia.